Ladies and gentlemen, this is an article that came out July 29, 2018. Florida Keys cope with suicide spike after Hurricane Irma. You know, summertime, a lot of people don't realize during the warm season, which is your spring and summer, suicides actually go up in the country. This is when a high number of it happens during, these seasons. And especially when natural disasters happen, it is not common, uncommon for suicides to go up. Monroe County already had one of the highest suicide rates in the state of Florida. Then came Hurricane Irma. And although most of the debris has been removed from the land and lots of repairs are underway, the storm continues to impact the Keys almost a year later. And here is an audio track. We're going to go ahead and listen to this.
From the WLRN studios at the Miami Herald, I'm Christine DiMattei. After Hurricane Irma, there were the obvious physical signs of a disaster. Debris, blue tarps, homes destroyed. More than 10 months later, the debris is mostly gone. Homes are under repair. But as WLRN's Nancy Klingener tells us, there's still a lot of pain. A note to listeners, this story includes references to suicide.
Debbie Zutant tends bar at Coconuts on Big Pine Key on weekend afternoons. A few months ago, she said goodbye to a regular. He was a local taxi driver, someone everybody in town knew and liked.
He left the bar, and I remember I walked over to him and I said, not only are you my favorite customer, you're one of my favorite people in the world, and I gave him a big smooch.
A couple hours later, he took his own life. He was the fifth person Zutant knew on Big Pine Key to die by suicide since Hurricane Irma last September. The suicide rate in Monroe County was already much higher than the statewide rate before the storm. For the last 5 years, the county averaged 21 a year. By July of this year, there were 20 suicides in the Keys, on track to double the average. An obvious factor is Hurricane Irma, according to the county health director, Bob Eady.
It's like this miasma, this cloud hangs over anybody that had to go through it.
Getting through the hurricane and the immediate aftermath was hard, but the stress is really showing months later, as people are still trying to find a place to live that they can afford, to rebuild their homes or businesses. A lot of people are still fighting with insurance companies. Summer DeBastiani is an assistant professor of nursing at the University of Miami. Before Irma, she wrote her PhD dissertation about suicide risk in the Keys and lives in the Keys now. She used to work at the Centers for Disease Control on disaster preparedness and response. She says after a disaster, there's what's called, believe it or not, a honeymoon period.
And that's when, the community is joining together and there's a lot of rallying and support.
After a few months, that goes away. The volunteer forces go back home.
And then you kind of are left with, still the remnants. And that's when kind of the mental health aspects start setting in pretty strongly.
DeBastiani says it's important for people to reach out to friends who may be at risk, and for the community as a whole to realize that a lot of their neighbors are dealing with some pretty severe stress.
Anything we can do as a community to try to help alleviate that stress, especially now, post-Irma, I think would be very helpful. Improving people's quality of life. It's odd to say that because we live in paradise, right?
Quality of life can be something that doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Bob Eady from the health department recently moved and wound up giving some fishing gear to one of the movers, who lives on Big Pine and lost everything.
He had not been able to justify spending money on some fishing gear with all the other things he needs.
But taking time to do things you really enjoy, that's a real need, Eady says. That stuff matters.
For his mental health, it's something that he should be doing, but he just couldn't do it.
Another challenge in the Florida Keys is the famous island character of independence and resilience, a character that is distilled to its essence on Big Pine. It's a rural community between the cities of Marathon and Key West.
It's kind of always been an outlaw and a smuggler kind of off-the-wall community.
Debbie Zutant, the bartender.
very proud and very stubborn and hard-headed.
Edie and DeBastiani both say that's one of the biggest public health challenges in the Keys, persuading those independent islanders that it's okay to ask for help.
I mean, the Keys are tough people, and that's good news and bad news. There is such a tendency that I've seen that they're going to take care of everything by themselves without asking for help.
The Monroe County Health Department is looking for national models on coping with suicide and other long-term mental health impacts after a disaster. I'm Nancy Klingener in Key West.
The suicide prevention hotline number is 800-273-8255. And for more information on resources for suicide prevention and where to get mental health care in the Florida Keys, please visit WLRN.org. This is WLRN News. I'm Christine DiMattei.
All right, y'all. So you heard that the suicide rate in the Florida Keys went up, and actually they have the highest suicides in the entire state of Florida. So I don't know what they're talking about, some tough people. You know, you would think tough people would not be committing suicide. But by July this year, there were already 20 suicides in the Key, on track to double the county's average. So it's going through the roof. And, you know, this again was one of those hardest hit areas in Florida during Hurricane Irma. Now, also, I want to point, the worst suicide state in the country is Montana. Montana has always led in this country. It's a state that has a high population of white and Native American, Indian, and that's where the suicide occurs the highest among them. And it shows you also in this chart, and this is from Belgrade News, August 2nd, 2018, and it shows you, I mean, somebody as young as 10 committing suicide. That's crazy. So it shows you all of the different age groups, but as you can see, the 35 to 44 group tends to commit the highest amount of suicide. And then it goes down slightly, right? But it goes back up for the people that are 75 plus. You would think somebody, if you made it to over 75 years old, you wouldn't commit suicide. But it is not the case at all. You know? So, like I said before, it is the most prevalent time of the year to commit suicide. The average person that commits suicide does it by firearms. As you can see, 43% of the people in Montana use a firearm to commit suicide. And you can see hanging is at 19%, overdose 12%, someone that uses a sharp object, that's at 2%, and somebody that jumps from a high place or jumps into traffic, 2%, other 9% right here. So, like I said, it's not unusual for you to hear about a lot of suicides this time of the year. I don't know why it goes up in the warm season and goes down when it's cold, but that's the way it's always been in this country. It's always been during the warm season. Who knows? But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen, about all of these suicides going on. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I will see you on the next video. Peace, family.